Story 1. I drive for a living, but I haven't been able to leave mile marker 227. It started as another routine long-haul route, the kind I've run dozens of times over the past few years. I drive alone, just me and the road, hauling inventory across long distances at odd hours. I've always preferred it that way. Fewer people, fewer problems. This route was different. It was a simple overnight drive from Chicago to Denver. Leave the warehouse at 7 p.m., take I-80 west through Iowa and Nebraska, hit the Colorado border by morning. Easy. Familiar. A stretch of road I've driven hundreds of times before. But this time, I never made it past mile marker 227. I should have known something was off when I got to the truck. There was frost on the inside of the windshield. Not condensation, actual frost. Like someone had left the AC blasting sub-zero air all night long. But the keys hadn't even been in the ignition. I cranked the heater and shrugged it off. Maybe a broken seal somewhere. I've dealt with worse. I hit the road. The first 100 miles were uneventful. Long, dark stretches of empty road, peppered with the occasional sleepy town or 24-hour diner glowing like a mirage in the black. I listened to some true crime podcasts, drank coffee, kept my eyes on the dotted lines. Then I saw it, mile marker 227. It wasn't out of place or broken or strange. Just a green sign with white letters on the right side of the road like any other. But something about it hit me hard in the gut. That sudden animal feeling of being watched. Of being somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. And then it came again. Another mile marker 227, exactly 1 minute later. At first I assumed I misread it. Or maybe Nebraska was testing out new signage. Maybe a mistake. But it wasn't just that. The landscape outside the truck didn't change. Same field, same distant water tower, same dead tree bent at a strange angle near the shoulder. I passed another gas station I was sure I'd seen already. The same one with the flickering blue open sign and the canopy light that buzzed like it had bees trapped inside. I even saw the same car parked out front, same dents, same hanging pine air freshener in the mirror. Then I passed mile marker 227 again. I started to think I'd lost it. Highway hypnosis, maybe, but I tapped the trip counter. 0.9 miles, only 0.9 miles since the last marker. I slowed down, pulled off, checked my GPS, it was stuck. Not frozen, just looping. Like it kept reloading the same stretch of road over and over again. No service bars. I looked at the map anyway, and it still showed I-80, but the little blue arrow, the one that represented me, wasn't moving. I sat there in the dark cab of my truck with the engine humming and headlights cutting across a wide, empty cornfield, trying to shake the fog from my head. Maybe I was just tired. That's when I saw someone standing in the field, about 100 feet away, just standing there, backlit by the moonlight, no flashlight, no phone, no movement, just a tall figure facing the road, barely visible but completely still. I flashed my high beams, no change. I honked the horn, it raised its hand. Not to wave, it was more like a signal, a warning, like it knew I could see it now. I threw the truck into gear and gunned it down the road. Mile marker 227. Again, over the next few hours, I did everything I could think of to break the loop. I turned around. I exited off into dirt roads that twisted away into the nothing. I shut the truck off completely. I walked. But no matter what I did, I kept ending up back at that same stretch. Driving past the same marker, under the same moonlight, passing that same buzzing gas station with that same car in front. Every so often I'd see someone standing in the field. Sometimes they were closer. Sometimes they were right up near the road, always silent, always watching. By what should have been 4 a.m., I couldn't tell how long I'd been in the loop. I smashed the GPS. I tried to call for help, but there was never a signal. The real horror, though, didn't hit me until later. I saw another trucker parked on the shoulder, flashers on. I pulled up beside them, hoping, praying they were stuck too. Maybe we could figure it out together. But when I got close enough to roll my window down, I saw myself. Same truck, same dent in the grill, same smudge on the windshield. Same me, slumped over in the cab, eyes wide open, mouth hanging slightly open like I'd been frozen mid-breath, like I was watching myself from the outside. I screamed. I swerved. I floored it. The next thing I remember clearly is waking up behind the wheel, truck parked neatly at a rest stop near mile 228. Bright morning sun. Birds chirping, GPS working, trip meter normal, like none of it had happened. But every time I get back on the road now, every time I drive west on I-80, my stomach knots up as I start approaching the high 220s. And last night, I swear to God, I passed mile marker 227 again. But the field was gone. There was only a flat black wall of trees and a mirror nailed to a post in the shape of a man. And I know next time, it won't let me leave. Story 8. I found a rest stop that only exists at night. I was driving through Kansas on the third night of a cross-country haul, trying to make up for time I lost to a blown-out tire and a detour that added hours. Around 2:37 a.m., just past a flat stretch of farmland with no exits, I saw a glowing sign I'd never seen before. Rest, food, fuel, clean showers, exit now. It didn't appear on my GPS. There were no billboards before it, but the turnoff ramp looked paved and fresh, and my bladder was screaming, so I took it. What I found wasn't a typical travel plaza. It was tucked between two massive bone-white cliffs that hadn't been on the road minutes before. No other cars, no attendants, just a glowing, almost sterile-looking facility beneath high-sodium lamps with gas pumps that had no visible brand and a store that said, "You were almost too late." I chalked it up to exhaustion. Inside, it looked like a typical truck stop. Harsh lights, humming refrigerators, cheap souvenirs, a row of snack aisles. But there was something off about the music playing through the overhead system. The longer I listened, the more it felt like it wasn't music at all. Just whispering, layered and soft, urgent. I went to the bathroom. The stall doors were mirrors. Perfect, polished, floor-to-ceiling mirrors. My reflection didn't quite match my movements. Half a second too slow. Its eyes a little too wide. I looked away fast. When I came out, the clerk behind the counter was staring at me, not blinking, hands flat on the counter, hair too neat. He said, "You don't remember checking in." I asked him what the hell he meant. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's how you know it worked. I turned to leave, but the front door wasn't there anymore, just a narrow hallway labeled rooms 2 through 6. I ran down the hall, every door marked with my name. Every door locked, except one. Room 3. The door opened onto a replica of my first apartment. Furniture, posters, layout, everything identical. Even the framed picture on the nightstand of someone I hadn't spoken to in 10 years. I heard their voice, inside the room, talking to me. But it was coming from the vents. "Stay a while," it whispered. "Just until morning. We're almost done rebuilding you." I backed away, tried the hall again. Now the doors read, Year 1, Year 2, Year 3, all the way to Year 36. I'm only 32. I opened Year 36. Inside was a small room with a hospital bed, a man on life support, and a television playing home videos of me as a child, but from angles I couldn't explain. The man on the bed was bald, thin, waxy. When I stepped closer, his eyes opened. He was me. He mouthed something. I leaned in. He whispered, "You pulled off at the wrong place. We don't exist in time the same way anymore." I ran. This time the doors didn't lead anywhere. Just back to the truck stop. Just the store. Just the mirrors. The clerk was still there, but now his face was mine too. I screamed at him. He smiled and handed me a receipt. On it were 3 words, "Drive until forgotten." When I got back to my car, my GPS worked again. The sun was rising, and behind me, the entire stop was gone. Just endless highway and the kind of silence that's too still to be empty. I don't stop anymore. Not even for gas. Not even to sleep. Because whatever found me there is still whispering. And sometimes I can't tell if I'm still driving or just dreaming that I escaped. Want the Story 7. I picked up a hitchhiker who knew everything I'd ever done. I don't usually pick up hitchhikers. You hear stories, people going missing, guts in garbage bags, unmarked graves along the tree line. But that night, I don't know, something felt different. The highway had that wet paper silence, like the world had folded in a little and my headlights just barely pushed it back. I saw him standing by the road sign with his thumb out. No bags, no phone, just a man in a black windbreaker with nothing around him for miles. I pulled over. I don't know why. I didn't even make the decision. It just happened, like muscle memory, like I'd done it before. He opened the passenger door, didn't ask where I was going, didn't even say hello. He just looked at me and said, "You left her in the river." I thought maybe I misheard. He got in, shut the door, and kept his eyes on the road ahead. No smile, no shifting, no checking his phone, just that smell like wet soil and copper. I asked him where he was headed. He said, "Same place as you." I laughed. Nervous reflex. "Where's that?" He turned to look at me, and his eyes weren't quite the same size. One was too wide, the other too dark. Both looked older than his face. "The memory," he said. That's when my hands started shaking, because I had left her in the river. I never told anyone. Not the whole truth, just pieces, just enough to survive. I'd been 16. It was an accident. It was an accident, wasn't it? He started humming, a song I hadn't heard since childhood, something my mother used to sing to calm me down, something I hadn't remembered until that moment. I pulled over, told him to get out. He didn't move, just stared ahead. He said, "You're gonna listen, and then if you still want to forget, I'll let you out." I told him again, "Get out," but my hands weren't responding. My foot pressed the gas without me meaning to, and we kept going. He started telling me things. Not just about her, not just about the river, but about nights I'd blacked out, arguments I thought I won. The dog I said ran away. He told me where I buried it. He told me the name of a girl I dated briefly in college, the one who vanished. I had never even said her name out loud since. I was screaming by the time we crossed into another state, but he just kept talking. "These aren't just memories," he said. "They're debts." I asked him what he wanted. He said, "To ride with you until the last one's paid." I don't remember the next 3 hours. When I came to, I was parked in front of my childhood home, abandoned now. The passenger seat was empty. But taped to the dash was a single Polaroid photo. It showed me, sleeping in the back seat of my car, and in the photo, the man was in the driver's seat, smiling. Let me know when you're ready for Story 8. Story 5, my GPS kept taking me to gas stations that don't exist anymore. The first time it happened, I figured it was just out-of-date software. I was making the 6-hour drive from Des Moines to Chicago for a job interview. My car was a 2009 Subaru, and the GPS system was built in. Clunky, but reliable, at least until that day. It rerouted me for fuel availability. I didn't question it. I was nearly empty, and it said there was a station 3 miles off the main road. So I took the exit. Dirt shoulder, narrow road, no other cars. The kind of turn that makes you feel like you're entering a pocket of forgotten geography. A minute later, I saw it. A Phillips 66 station, ancient and sun-bleached, half sunken into the earth like a building giving up on itself. I pulled in. There were no lights. The windows were covered in some kind of soot or mold or growth, like tar vines. And yet the pump screen lit up. It read, "Welcome back, 11 years, 8 months, 2 days. I didn't understand. I'd never been here, but my hands moved anyway. I swiped my card. The screen, it declined. The screen blinked red, then white, then showed me a memory. Not an ad, not a glitch, a scene, clear as day, of me as a child getting out of a different car at this exact station. I had a cut on my knee. I was holding a red pinwheel. Behind me, my dad was arguing with someone in the station's doorway, a man in a checkered green suit. Then the screen went dark again and said, "Revisit complete, pump closed." I got in the car and drove. I told myself it was a weird dream, a hallucination, stress. But the next day, on the way back from the interview, my GPS said, "New fuel location discovered," and rerouted me again. This time to a Chevron station 20 miles off-road. Same thing, dead building, lit pump, different memory. This time I saw my mother crying behind the counter while I stood outside eating a melted blue popsicle. Same man in the green suit, watching her. Same date on the screen, 11 years, 8 months, 2 days. I got home, parked the car, thought about calling my parents, but I didn't. Instead, I updated my GPS, deleted every saved route, but it didn't matter. Now, every time I go somewhere more than 20 miles away, every trip, the GPS tells me I need gas at some long-dead station. Texaco, Gulf, Mobil, all of them look like they were shuttered in the 90s, and each one shows me something I shouldn't remember. Something I don't know how I was even present for. Scenes of arguments, hospital visits. A man in a white room with 2 mirrors crying behind duct tape. My sister, whom I don't have, looking out a bus window with her eyes sewn shut. I don't talk to people about this. But last week, I took a trip out to Colorado for a client meeting. Had to rent a car. Totally new system. Fresh GPS. About 4 hours in, it said, "Fuel recommended. Closest memory available, 3.2 miles. It didn't say station, it said memory. I turned it off, rolled the windows down, tried to clear my head, but when I looked out across the valley, I saw it. The green-suited man, standing on the top of a distant gas station's roof, waving with two arms on the right side of his body. Story 2. My phone only rings when I pass through towns that don't exist. I've been a long-haul courier for 12 years now. Not a trucker, just a guy in a plain white van. I specialize in weird delivery jobs, the kind that pay in cash, no questions asked, sometimes under the table. Confidential items, rush runs across state lines, things that can't go through airports or shipping depots. When the usual systems fail, they call me, and I always pick up. Except I didn't used to get calls while I was working. Not until a few months ago. It started on a foggy stretch of road between Reno and Winnemucca, Nevada. The desert had this weird stillness to it that night. My radio wouldn't hold a signal. My GPS was struggling. The heat outside felt wrong, like it was coming from below the road. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number, no caller ID. I ignored it. A minute later, it rang again. Same number. This time I answered, thinking maybe it was the guy who hired me. All I heard was wind. Not static, just wind, like someone holding the phone out a car window. Then, buried under the rushing noise, I thought I heard someone say, "Don't stop in this town." Then it disconnected. There wasn't a town for miles. Just cracked road, endless dust, and distant shadows of mountains. I assumed it was a prank. Someone who got my number from a Craigslist ad or something. But I kept getting those calls, and always in the same pattern. The phone would ring the moment I entered some tiny nowhere place that wasn't on any map. That night in Nevada, a few minutes after the call, I saw a town appear up ahead. I should have passed it already. It wasn't there on the GPS. No signs, no billboards, but there it was. A blinking traffic light, a corner diner, a small motel, all half lit under sodium lamps. The place looked like it had been abandoned in the 80s. Rusted signs, faded neon, and every window was dark. Not just unlit, dark, opaque, like painted from the inside. I stopped anyway. I had to piss, and the gas station lights were flickering like they worked. But when I got out of the van, I felt it. The air didn't move. There was no wind, no bugs, no hum of electricity, just a flat silence that felt glued to my skin. I tried the gas station door, locked. I turned to leave, and there was a man standing across the street. He hadn't been there a second ago. He was wearing a janitor's uniform, dark gray coveralls, but he had no face, just a smooth stretch of skin where the features should have been. Not gory, not hollow, just wrong, like a mannequin sculpted halfway. He raised his hand, just like the figure in that field from story 1. I got back in the van and left. No joke, the second I passed the last building on the edge of that town, my phone rang again. Same number. This time I answered before it could ring twice. "You're not supposed to stop," the voice said. It was clearer now. Male. Low, calm, but mechanical, like a voicemail played through a busted speaker. "You won't leave if you go inside." Then it hung up. That was 2 months ago. Since then, it's happened 7 more times. Always the same setup, driving late at night through a forgotten highway. GPS signal starts lagging. I see a town that wasn't supposed to be there. Phone rings. Each town looks different. One was all houses built like dollhouses, identical but smaller than normal, with porches too narrow to stand on. Another had no doors, just windows, dozens of them, like the buildings had been built backwards. Sometimes the towns have people, or things pretending to be people. One town had a row of kids standing on the sidewalk, each holding a balloon. No adults, no movement, just staring as I passed. One of the kids' heads rotated slowly to follow me, but the body didn't move. I never stopped now. Not since the 3rd town. That time, I made the mistake of stepping out to take a photo. I blinked and the van was gone. Gone. Not stolen. Just gone. No tire tracks. No engine sound. Like it had never been there. I spent 3 hours walking the town, if you can even call it that. It was only 6 buildings wide. I never saw the end of the street, no matter how far I walked. Eventually, I gave up. I sat on a curb and told myself this was a dream. Some kind of lucid nightmare. And then I heard the van horn. It was right behind me, just there, waiting, like nothing happened. But now, the voice is starting to say more. The last call said, "If you answer too many times, we'll trace it." I don't know what that means, but I do know this. The more I do these runs, the more I see signs of those towns in real places. Graffiti, the same layouts, the same faces. I'll pass a billboard on the interstate and realize the eyes on the face are painted over, like they don't want me to see. Last night, I passed through Indiana, same setup, empty road, no lights, just corn and shadows. Phone rang. This time I didn't answer, but it left a voicemail. The transcript was only 4 words long. You already stopped once. The rest stop bathroom mirror didn't reflect me. It reflected what I'd forgotten. It started with a road trip, not for work, not for anything important, just a weekend drive to nowhere. I needed the air, the silence, the open spaces. I'd been having trouble sleeping, not insomnia exactly, more like I was waking up from dreams I didn't remember, with tears already on my face. I was somewhere in Kansas when I stopped at a small rest area off Highway 75. Nothing unusual. 2 vending machines, a cracked picnic table, a stone building with faded signs for men and women. The kind of place truckers sleep at without locking their doors. Inside the bathroom, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No buzzing light. No faint fan hum. It was like the sound had been vacuumed out. I stood at the sink to splash some water on my face. But when I looked into the mirror, I wasn't there. Not a trick of the light, not a dirty reflection. The sink was there, the walls, the flickering ceiling bulb. But where I should have been was someone else. Same height, same clothes, same hands. But the face was older, like someone had dragged my features through a decade of grief and let them harden. And the eyes weren't looking at me. They were looking past me, like I wasn't the thing on the outside, like I was the reflection. Then it moved. I didn't. The figure in the mirror leaned in, close to the glass. I could hear breathing, but not mine. It said without speaking, "You're the version that forgot." Then it showed me things. Flashes in the mirror's surface like dreams played at too high speed. A basement lit with meat hooks. A woman on a staircase whispering, "We never left," as the lights flickered. A toy train soaked in blood. My own mouth repeating a name I don't know. Ansel. A rest stop identical to this one, but with dozens of mirrors lining the walls, each one showing a different me. Screaming. I staggered backward, looked over my shoulder, still alone, but when I looked back, the mirror was broken. Spiderweb cracks, no sign of the version I'd seen. Just me, finally. Me again. Except something was wrong with my eyes. They were a different color. That was 3 weeks ago. And since then, every reflective surface I pass, store windows, car mirrors, chrome toasters, black phone screens, they all show versions of me, each one different, each one waiting. I think I was the lucky version. The one that forgot, the one that got to wake up. But something else has started happening. I caught my reflection moving on its own this morning, smiling while I cried. And tonight, when I looked into the bathroom mirror, there was a crack forming across the glass from the other side. As I didn't have anywhere else to go, not home, not back there, not after what happened. The ad was simple. Drive, listen, report anything unusual, pay is weekly, gas included. No address, just coordinates and a start time, 2:37 a.m. sharp. I should have known the route wasn't going to be on any map. I should have asked more questions. But I was already behind the wheel, half tanked on caffeine and half starved for something, anything, that would keep me moving. They gave me the car. A black 1974 Plymouth Valiant, the kind of thing a ghost might keep in a dusty garage for nostalgia. The glove box had 3 cassette tapes, each labeled with a date that hadn't happened yet. The first tape played by itself when I turned the key. If you're hearing this, you're on the loop. Don't stop driving until the tape ends. If you see anyone on the road, don't make eye contact. If the landscape repeats more than 3 times, take the next left, even if there is no road. At first, I thought it was just a prank, maybe a marketing gimmick for a podcast. But then the desert bled into itself. Gas stations kept resetting. People repeated themselves in reverse. I passed the same dead dog on the same stretch of asphalt 6 times. And on the 7th pass, it got up and watched me. The tapes grew more urgent, the roads more unstable. I was told I was transporting something, a memory, a soul, or maybe a version of myself that didn't belong in this timeline. Each rest stop held a different version of my life. One had a man in my jacket, smiling with my teeth, talking to a woman I couldn't remember. Another had my old dog waiting in the back seat, dead for 5 years, tail wagging like I'd never left. I saw cities that didn't exist. I drove under skies with too many moons, past forests that whispered in Morse code, and through towns where the people didn't move, just stared. Sometimes I would hear a second engine behind me, always just out of sight. Sometimes a voice in the static would tell me to take a detour. But I was warned. Never take a route that wasn't part of the original loop. I didn't listen. There are consequences to leaving the road too early. I learned that time doesn't pass the same on the loop. I learned that if you fall asleep, you dream of the versions of yourself who didn't make it. I saw the roadside motels they ended up in, trapped in eternal check-ins, rewinding their own regrets, and I found out what I was transporting. Or who. She's been in the back seat for hours now. She doesn't speak, but every time I look in the rearview mirror, she's a little closer. The tape ends soon, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to stop driving or if that's the point. Trying to drive across the state line, something kept changing the road signs. It was supposed to be a straight shot. My girlfriend and I were headed out of Missouri and into Arkansas for her cousin's wedding. Just a 6-hour drive with maybe one stop for gas. She was asleep in the passenger seat, earbuds in, and I was cruising down I-49 with nothing but open road and golden dusk. We were 30 minutes from the state line when I noticed the first change. The road sign said, "Welcome to Anxa." At first I thought it was graffiti. Some dumb kid had peeled off a letter or spray painted something. But then we passed another sign, an overhead one this time, and it said, "Next exit, Old Quar Road, Flash, Fort Anxa." I slowed the car. Fort Anxa? I've driven this stretch a dozen times. There's no Fort Anxa, no Old Quar Road. The names felt off, like someone trying to remember American place names from memory and getting them just slightly wrong. I nudged my girlfriend awake and asked if she'd ever heard of it. She rubbed her eyes, looked at the signs, and frowned, then said, "Yeah, we passed that 20 minutes ago." I told her no, we hadn't, that I was sure, but she insisted, even pulled out her phone to prove it. No signal. Maps wouldn't load. I checked mine, dead too. That's when I noticed the trees had changed. Not the color or density, the shape. They were slightly off. Too tall, too straight, no undergrowth at all, and the shadows were wrong. Every branch cast a shadow directly toward the road like they were reaching. I pulled off at the next exit, thinking maybe I could find a gas station or just reset the GPS. There was a small gravel road that curved off the main highway with a single rusted sign that said, "Old Quar Road, speed limit enforced by interference." That didn't make any sense. We drove in silence for maybe 15 minutes. No houses, no cars, no animals. Then the signs started showing up more frequently. Interstate boundary disputed, report all passengers. You are approaching a parallel state. Anxa is not a sanctuary. I stopped the car. My girlfriend whispered, "I think we've been here before." I asked what she meant. She said, "I think we tried to get out of Anxa before. I think they let us leave, but not all of us." I didn't understand. She looked confused too, like she wasn't sure what she was saying. That's when I saw the mileage marker. Mile 417, Anxa North, same as the last one we passed, and the one before that. I turned around. The road didn't look the same. The trees were thicker, and now they were curved toward us slightly. Not just the branches, the trunks, like everything was growing in slow motion, leaning into the road. A car passed us going the other way. Old, rusted. The license plate was smeared with mud and read, "Are you sure?" No state initials, just those 3 words. I kept driving. More signs now, bigger. You left your body behind. The memory of the road is not the road. Anxa does not recognize your name. I stopped again. Got out. The air smelled wrong, like dust and pennies, and when I looked down the road behind us, it was gone. Not a road, not gravel, just woods, as if nothing had ever been there. My girlfriend was crying. She said she remembered something like that we'd made this drive last year, that we never made it to the wedding, that the people we thought were family were strangers with our relatives' faces, and they kept asking us what we remembered about the exit gate, that we said something wrong, and they made us try again. I started the car, floored it. The road was narrowing now, squeezing inward. The speed limit signs no longer had numbers, just warnings. You're going the wrong way. Angsa is not a place. Stop before you're recognized. I drove faster. Eventually, we hit asphalt again, saw a gas station, familiar brands. The GPS flickered back to life. We had signal, but it said we were still in Angsa. That was 3 weeks ago. We're home now, or something that looks like home. But every sign we pass on the freeway still says Angsa. Our IDs don't scan. Our family looks slightly off. And every night, there's a moment, just a flash, where my girlfriend blinks out for a full second and comes back with her head turned slightly in the wrong direction, like she was somewhere else. And sometimes, just before sleep, I get a message on my phone from an unknown number. Always the same 5 words. Your exit gate is ready. Title: My cousin disappeared into a town that isn't on any GPS, but keeps calling me from a number with my name. The last time anyone saw my cousin Theo, he was hitchhiking southbound on Route 191, just past the old refinery ruins. We used to joke he'd vanish someday. He liked that idea too much. He said he'd rather be a myth than a man. But the way he disappeared, it was hollow. He left behind everything: wallet, phone, car, except he didn't disappear. He moved somewhere. He started calling me 3 days later, from my own number. At first, I thought it was a scam. Then I answered, and I heard Theo's voice, but not like I remembered it. It was flatter, slower, as if recorded in a long, empty hallway. He kept repeating the same phrase: "The gas station isn't here anymore, but the light is still on." Then silence. I tried calling back, but my phone froze. It wouldn't power off or on. When it finally reset, there was a photo in my gallery I hadn't taken. A town sign that read, "Welcome to Olivet." Population 1. Underneath, you. Nobody I talked to had ever heard of Olivet. Google Maps showed only forest. I drove out anyway. I followed Theo's last route, retracing his journey mile by mile. Around the 47th mile marker, my GPS blinked out. Radio turned to static. My windshield fogged up from the outside. Then I saw it, a left turn onto a road that wasn't paved, wasn't even there the last time I'd driven this highway. No signs, just tire marks in mud. I followed them. The air felt old, not stale, used, like it had already been breathed too many times by someone hiding just out of sight. Olivet didn't look abandoned. It looked unfinished. The houses were painted only on one side. Doors led to brick walls. Sidewalks dissolved into gravel mid-step. Everything was covered in a faint, oily sheen, like it had been lacquered in memory. No birds, no animals, just a humming, the kind you hear in dreams when you realize you're not alone in the room. I found the gas station from Theo's message. It had no pumps, just one flickering light over a door that wouldn't open. The shelves inside were filled with identical items, cans labeled "You Were Here." And the cashier, she stood completely still, not blinking. Her hands were perfectly flat on the counter. I thought she was a mannequin until she smiled without moving the rest of her face. She spoke without opening her mouth. "He made it. You might too." Then her eyes rolled back, and I heard the ringtone again from my own pocket. Another call from my number. This time, Theo's voice said, "I finally remembered with the sky. You're going to hate it." I stayed the night in one of the half-finished houses. The furniture was carved into the floor, solid, unmoving. I tried to sleep, but the windows showed daylight no matter the hour. Every hour, a chime echoed through the town like a grandfather clock underwater. I started receiving texts from Theo, each one worse than the last. The post office is full of arms, not bodies, just arms. Don't go near the chapel. They hold rehearsals at night. The mirrors here don't reflect, they record. I don't remember who I used to be. You will. By dawn, or what passed for it, I made my way to the chapel. It was the only fully built structure in Olivet, yet it looked unfinished in the wrong direction, like something that had decayed before it had ever existed. Black mold bloomed across symbols carved into the stone, shapes I couldn't process unless I looked away from them. Inside, rows of mannequins sat in the pews. They were dressed in my childhood clothes, my old band shirts, my shoes, my graduation cap. They all faced the altar, where a figure stood in a preacher's robe, slowly peeling its own face off, layer by layer, and laying the slices on a communion plate. I ran, out of the chapel, through the street, toward the trees. My car was gone. Instead, there was a row of payphones. Identical. None had cords. One rang. I answered. "You're almost here," said my own voice. But it wasn't my voice. It was older, slower, regretful. You shouldn't have brought your name with you. I got out eventually, or at least, I think I did. But every night, I get a call from my number, and every call ends with Theo whispering something new. You left the gate open, it followed you back. Story 3. My dad vanished on Route 117. I just found his car idling in the middle of the road. I wasn't even supposed to be in Wyoming that night. The plan was to take the I-80 straight through to Salt Lake, make a pickup, then head back. But my contact texted to say the client was delayed and I had 5 hours to kill. I checked my phone for side roads. Thought maybe I'd scout an alternate route or grab a bite in a ghost town. That's when I saw it. Route 117. The name meant nothing at first, just another number in a state that feels more like a dream than a place. But something about it felt familiar, like a term I hadn't heard since I was a kid. Then I remembered. My dad disappeared somewhere off Route 117 in 1998. I was 9 years old. He was driving back from a camping trip, and the last anyone heard from him was a voicemail to my mom. Pulled off for gas, middle of nowhere, weird place. I'll call again in a minute. He never did. They found his wallet in a diner off the highway. His car, never recovered. Just gone. No real investigation. No big news story. It was like the earth just opened up and took him. And here I was, staring at the road name on Google Maps, seeing that familiar curve snaking through the flatlands, then suddenly vanishing from the satellite view halfway through. Literally vanishing. Not ending. Just cut off, like someone had erased the rest of the highway. So I turned. I told myself I was just looking for answers. Closure. Curiosity. But the second my tires hit Route 117, I knew I'd made a mistake. The road was narrower than I expected, only one lane in each direction, no shoulder, just endless grass on either side, no buildings, no fences. The sky above looked sickly, this overcast greenish color that made everything feel underlit, like I was driving inside an old CRT screen. About 30 minutes in, my signal dropped. Then came the static on the radio. Not hissing, but breathing. Slow, faint exhales timed to the rhythm of my own. I shut the radio off, but the sound kept going. Louder. That's when I saw the car, just sitting there, a silver 96 Pathfinder, idling, no hazard lights, no one inside. I recognized it instantly. It was my dad's. The dents on the back bumper, the faded bumper sticker that used to say, "I brake for ghosts," but had been scratched to just say, "Brake for ghosts," in uneven lettering. The windows were fogged from the inside. I stopped, parked behind it, engine still running. The air was absolutely still, and yet, every blade of grass on either side of the road was trembling. I stepped out, walked up to the Pathfinder, opened the driver's door, still warm, keys in the ignition, a half-empty thermos in the cup holder, my dad's voice on a tape jammed in the deck from one of those old dictaphones he used to record ideas. I picked it up, pressed play, and heard, "If you're hearing this, I need you to turn around and leave. They don't let you die here." That's the trick. That's the reason the road's never on the map. Click. End of tape. I looked up. The road behind me had changed. The turns didn't match. The trees were gone, and now I could see headlights in the distance, approaching slowly, but with no sound. I got back in my own van, tried to reverse. Nothing. No movement. Like the wheels weren't touching the ground anymore. I looked in the rearview mirror. The headlights were closer, but still no sound. No engine. No tires crunching gravel, just light, growing brighter. Suddenly, my dad's car, still idling, shut off by itself. Then, the lights behind me did the same. Everything went black. Not dark, black. A complete absence of light, like someone had turned off the sky. For maybe 30 seconds, I couldn't see anything. And in that blackness, I swear I saw him, or something that wore my father's face. Not outside, in the rear view. His eyes were open too wide. His mouth not moving, but a voice came through the vents. "I had to leave my skin in the passenger seat. That's how they let me talk to you." I screamed, and then the lights snapped back on. Sunlight. It was morning. I was back on I-80. No Route 117, no silver Pathfinder, just my van, parked on the shoulder, engine running. But the dictaphone was still in my lap. I pressed play again, and this time, the voice said something different. "You don't remember the last 5 hours. That's good. You were somewhere you weren't supposed to be. If you go back, they'll put someone else in your van, someone who knows your name but won't pronounce it right." click. I've tried to find Route 117 again. It's not there. But sometimes when I drive late at night, my GPS glitches and offers a reroute with no voice guidance. The road bends slightly left, the sky goes greenish, and I start to hear breathing through the radio again. I haven't followed it again, but I will. I have to, because the last time it happened, the voice said, "There's still a seat in the car, but it's not yours anymore." Let me know when you want story 4. This volume is building towards title. I was sent to repair an abandoned radio tower, but the signal wasn't coming from Earth. I fix towers. That's what I tell people when they ask. I climb rusted ladders, replace transceivers, clean out nests, and tighten ancient bolts on antennas that no one listens to anymore. But this tower was different. They didn't send me coordinates, just a hand-sketched map and an envelope marked for Radio Man 0. I was Radio Man 14, no idea what happened to 0. The sketch led me to the edge of a forgotten forest, dense, silver-barked trees that didn't match any species I knew. The tower stood in the center. It pulsed. It didn't broadcast anything on the standard bands. I tried every frequency, AM, FM, VHF, nothing. Until I switched to manual sweep and caught something between static. "You're standing where the sky bent inward." Then another line. "You are not the first Radio Man." There was no sign of wildlife, no birds, no bugs. Even the wind seemed to pause near the base of the tower. I opened the maintenance hatch and found wires braided into knots, half covered in a kind of gray moss that pulsed with heat. And etched into the metal underneath were symbols, not words, more like instructions for something that remembered speech. The first night, I heard voices in my sleep, faint, metallic, repeating the same numbers in a language that bent at the end. When I woke up, my walkie-talkie had melted. When I looked at my reflection in the van window, I was smiling, but I wasn't moving my face. I tried to call the main office. The phone connected, but it didn't dial out. Instead, it rang inward, from the tower. So I climbed. Each rung felt colder. The higher I went, the more impossible the structure became. At one point, I passed a window, a real window, with curtains, inside the tower, and someone inside looked back at me. Someone in my uniform. At the top platform, I found a console. Old, 1960s military style, still humming. It only had one switch. It said, "Return signal to sender." I flipped it. Everything stopped. Then the sky unzipped. Light spilled through, liquid light flowing upward. A shape emerged, faceless and geometric, like an origami insect folding in reverse. It broadcast without sound. I could feel the message in my bones. The experiment failed. This version of Earth did not respond. Close the loop. Then everything around me started rewinding. The clouds folded backward, trees unburned, my own skin flickered like a dying frame. I woke up at the base of the tower again. Day 1. No memory of the climb, except for the scar on my palm, shaped like the console switch. I tried to leave, walked an hour in one direction, only to return from the other side, shoes soaked, clothes wrong. There were more of me now. At least 3. One sits by the campfire, one climbs the tower over and over, one watches from the forest, and me, I listen to the broadcast, because now it never stops. The voice says, "You are the tower. You are the signal. You are the Radio Man that will never reach 0. Room that wasn't on the blueprint. Strange construction, extra room, something waiting inside." When we remodeled the old motel, I double-checked the blueprints. Every room accounted for, nothing strange. But when the workers broke through the east wall, they found another door. Room 301. There was no second floor. It was fully furnished. Lamps still plugged in, a cup of tea steaming, no dust, no signs of decay. A journal on the nightstand was dated 1958, and the last line read, "I hear them building me again." The workers quit. I tried to seal it up, but every week I find the door again, somewhere else, and the room is still warm. 2. The architect drew himself into the floor plan. Obsession, blueprints that evolve, self-erasing design. The man who designed our office building disappeared before it was finished. His blueprints stopped making sense. Doors that led to nowhere, staircases that looped. We laughed until we found the mirror hallway, 6th floor. Not on any diagram, it stretched forever, reflected into darkness. At the end, we saw a man standing still, looked like the architect, but older, pale, hands pressed to the glass, smiling. We blinked, and he was gone. The next day, the office layout had changed, and none of us remember the exit ever being that far away. 3. My apartment wasn't there yesterday. Shifting rooms, unseen tenants, apartment that appears overnight. I've lived on the 10th floor for 3 years, Unit 1005. Last night, the elevator stopped at a floor I didn't recognize in half, just a single hallway, just one door. Apartment 1005B, and taped to it, a note with my name on it. We've been waiting for you. I ran. I told the doorman. He told me, that floor doesn't exist anymore. But every time I ride the elevator now, it stops there, and the note keeps changing. Last time it said, you already live here. Go check your lease. I did. It now reads, Sha 1005B. 4. The house drew itself. Living sketch, blueprints come to life, recursive construction. I inherited a roll of architectural plans from my grandfather. Scribbled in red ink with no measurements, I unrolled them on my kitchen table. That night, my walls began to shift. The kitchen door moved 6 inches left. The hallway gained an extra turn. By the end of the week, I had rooms I didn't build. A staircase to nowhere. A door behind the fridge. One room was just a chair and a mirror. The chair faced the mirror, nothing else. Every morning, the blueprints are slightly longer, as if someone is still drawing, and I can't find my way to the front door anymore. 5. The forbidden level under the library. Academic horror, secret blueprints, floor that rewrites itself. I work maintenance at an old university library. The elevator has a button labeled B3. There's no basement 3. Press it anyway, and the elevator drops for far too long. When the doors open, it's not bookshelves, just one massive atrium. Walls lined with doors made of paper. The floor is soft. It shifts underfoot. There's no light source, but it's always dimly lit. One of the professors told me the building was designed by a man who believed architecture should trap ideas, make knowledge bleed. Now, when I walk the upper floors, I hear books whispering in voices that match mine, and I've forgotten what the main floor even looks like. This house was meant for something else. Blueprint mismatch, ritual house, rooms that serve a hidden purpose. We moved into a strange home in the woods. It was cheap but oddly shaped. Everything felt off-center. The rooms weren't square. The hallways were sloped. Every window faced another house that didn't exist. Then I found the original blueprints under the floorboards, but they weren't labeled living room or kitchen. They were labeled witness chamber, sacrifice hold, channel vein. There was a spiral drawn through the house, connecting every corner, and in the center, mouth. We tried to leave, but each door just opens deeper inside, and last night the house sighed, like it was finally full. Let me know if you want a third set